Hello friends, Robin here from Cheese from Scratch, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how to set up a bucket press to press your cheese. So I wish I knew about bucket presses when I first started making cheese 10 years ago, because when I first started making cheese I didn't have a proper press and I was just really trying to stack things up on top of my cheese. I had stacks of books and all sorts of different things, cases of beer, all sorts of things, and that worked. It worked really well, but actually it didn't work that well. A lot of times I was having presses toppling over. I was making really lopsided cheeses. Mostly just the toppling over was the biggest part. I was like scrambling around my house to find things that were the correct weight. So I really wish I had known about a bucket press when I did first start kind of trying to DIY a press. If you've been around here for a while, you know that I now use a Dutch press, which I absolutely love. I love the Dutch press so much. I've tried other styles of presses like the crank presses, the spring sort of presses, but to me nothing really beats that Dutch press. One day I will do a video on how to properly use the press, the Dutch press, but today's video is all about how to set up this bucket press, because I know a lot of us want to learn how to make cheese, but we're sort of hung up in the fact that we don't have a cheese press. Should we really invest all of this money into getting one when we're not even really sure if we like cheese making to begin with, or we don't really know what type of press we should even buy? So I have a whole video actually below. I filmed it quite a while ago and I plan on re-filming it at some point, but it does talk you through the different types of presses that you can purchase, shows how I used to DIY presses, but now this would be my more favorable type of DIY press is this bucket press, but that video I will link down below so you guys can check that out, but it does help you if you're just trying to think about what press might be good for you. Now, so a bucket press is super easy to make and you probably have everything you need. If you don't have buckets, I bought these buckets at the dollar store. They were $5 each at the dollar store, so you know, not too expensive at all. I keep these buckets specifically for my bucket press, and it might seem funny because I have all these different types of cheese presses, but I still use the bucket press specifically with one type of cheese form that I have, which is this one, because it won't fit, it's so big it won't fit in any of my other cheese presses, and it will fit in the bucket press, so I keep these buckets for that. So when you're making a bucket press, the principle is that you are going to have two buckets that fit into each other, and when they fit into each other, they should like loosely fit in. It shouldn't be like a tight squeeze to get them in there. If they can loosely fit in, those buckets are going to work. I like to use 5-gallon buckets because that's going to give you the most weight, the best amount of weight. So you can make really harder type cheeses like cheddars. For example, cheddars are a really hard cheese to press. You need a lot of weight on them. You can still make cheddar in a bucket press. So that's why I like to use 5-gallon, because you can put more weight on top of them basically. So when you set up your bucket press, you're going to need a cheese form. So I actually recommend that you buy a cheese form with a follower. I have to wash this one out, it's a little dirty, a little dusty. Anyways, we're not actually making cheese today, I'm just teaching you guys how to do it. I recommend that you buy a cheese form and a follower that fits inside it. Now you can DIY cheese forms and followers. For example, you could use honey buckets that one would fit into the other and just drill holes into it and stuff. But I spent so long trying to figure out like a cheese form when I was first starting, just like trying to DIY different cheese forms, spring form pans, like all sorts of different things. And in the end, cheese forms are so inexpensive. I think for this whole setup here was probably $20, like $10 for each piece. So it was really not that expensive. When you're choosing a cheese form for pressed cheeses, kind of going by the amount of milk that you're planning on processing. So for example, this is a very loose rule depending on the milk composition, but typically you're getting about 1 pound of cheese per gallon of milk that you're using. So if you are going to be making a 4-gallon batch of cheese, you're going to probably be using a 3 to 4 pound cheese form. So kind of choosing that on what size of cheese form you want. Okay, anyways, get yourself a cheese form, and what you're going to do is you're going to put your cheese in there. So pretend I have a cheese in here. I've got my cheesecloth. You're going to put your cheesecloth in there, your moistened cheesecloth, put your cheese in there, do all the things that you need to do, you know, let it drain for 10 minutes, all that kind of jazz. Put your form follower lid on there, and what you're going to do is you're going to put this in your bucket. I wish these buckets were clear so you could see. And then what you're going to do is you're going to find something that fits on top, because when this cheese starts to press down, at first the bucket that I put on top is going to be pushing pressure on it, but as it starts to go down, it's not going to be pushing as much pressure. And as well, when you have a smaller diameter that it's pressing on, you need less weight to be able to actually get the cheese to press. All right, so you're going to put that small can in there just on top of your cheese form. Looks like that. And then you're going to put this bucket in there. And then you're going to fill this bucket with water. And typically what I do is about 3/4 full is, or about, I guess, a half a full is about medium pressure, 1/4 full is about low pressure, and 3/4 to completely full is about high pressure. But you're going to need to gauge, depending on the size of cheese you've got in there, what that's going to look like. But that's just a loose rule that I follow. So if you guys haven't heard, I actually wrote a cheese making book, a physical cheese making book that's going to come out in April. And so this cheese making book, it's going to talk all about how to set up a bucket press in there. It's going to talk a lot about pressing, because I know a lot of people kind of get confused about it. It looks at pressing without using a math equation and instead kind of uses common sense. So some of the tips that I talk about in there is really gauging how much weight you're putting on your cheese by how much whey is seeping out of that cheese. So just for an example, you never want the whey to be running out of the cheese. So if you put your cheese into the cheese form, you've just packed it all in there, it's in its cheesecloth, what you're going to see is that the whey is seeping out quite quickly. It's running out of the cheese. And so when that's happening, you never actually want to be putting any pressure on that. You're letting that cheese sort of drain for 10 minutes or so until that whey stops running. And then what you're going to do, say if you were using a typical standard Dutch press or any other type of press that you could actually see what the whey was doing, is you're going to apply a small amount of pressure. So low pressure, always starting low and going higher. And you're only going to apply enough pressure until you see that whey dripping. You never want it to be running. If it's running out, you're applying too much pressure. And so you're going to start low and gradually increase. And this is going to help you to have less mechanical holes, help you not trap as much whey in there, which is going to help with having bitter tasting cheeses. So tons and tons of tips on that, on pressing cheese in this new book. Also tons of recipes, other troubleshooting, getting you set up, teaching you guys how to make cheese, all sorts of different things. So you can check out pre-orders for that book down below. I will link it down there for you guys. But yes, anyways, today's video was just about teaching you how to set up this bucket press. Super simple. And yeah, I would say the one limitation with it is that you can't really gauge how quickly the whey is running. So for that, I kind of start lower and I go higher. Start maybe lower than I would usually. You can also listen for the whey. Yeah, those are a few ways to kind of help with that. Another benefit actually that I've found of the bucket press is because cheese presses so much better when it's in a warm environment, the buckets are really good at maintaining that warmth, and because the whey is kind of physically dripping into the bucket and staying in there, you're having that warmth maintained quite a bit better. You can also drill holes in this bucket if you don't want the whey to stay in there. You can drill holes in the bottom bucket. That's just kind of an extra step, and that will cause the whey to kind of drain off so that your cheese isn't sitting in that way. But I haven't found any problems. I've been making all sorts of different cheeses in this big form in my bucket press and not having any whey holes in the bottom of this. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Next time I do a cheese making tutorial in here, I will try and make sure that I use the bucket press. I do believe that I maybe used it for some cheese making tutorial I did on here not that long ago, but I just can't remember which video that was in. But yeah, super simple setup, really helpful if you're just getting started and you're not sure if you want to invest in a press yet. It doesn't take up that much space because the buckets can just kind of stack together like this. I just store it with my milking equipment. It does take up more space than if you were going to have a smaller type press, but it takes up less space than the Dutch press, so that's kind of the good thing there. So thank you guys for watching my video. Make sure if you haven't already, subscribe down below and come back next Monday because I post a new video every Monday and I would love you to see you guys here. Okay, bye!